Hello and welcome to the Military History Club's Great Battle in 10 Minutes feature. Today I'm discussing the Battle of Chilianwalla, which was fought in the Punjab, now part of modern Pakistan, on the 13th of January 1849 between General Sir Hugh Gough's Anglo-Indian army and a Sikh force under Sher Singh Attariwalla. It resulted in a hard-fought and narrow British victory. The Second Anglo-Sikh War had broken out in the Punjab in April 1848, when the city of Multan rose in rebellion. The rebels were soon joined by a local Sikh force under Sher Singh Attariwalla that had been sent to quell the revolt. By January 1849, Sher Singh was firmly entrenched with a large army on the south bank of the Jhelum River. Gough's intention had been to wait for reinforcements from Multan, which had just fallen to general wish, before he risked attacking Singh's position. Three factors forced him to change his mind. News that Attock Fort on the Indus River had fallen to the Sikhs, opening the way for another rebel chief and Afghan cavalry to link up with Sher Singh. Pressure from the Governor-General, Lord Dalhousie, who was concerned that Indian public opinion was turning against the war, and reports that Sikh agents were attempting to undermine the loyalty of Gough's Indian sepoys. During the morning of the 13th of January, therefore, he marched his army of 66 guns and 12,000 men towards the Sikhs' positions. Unbeknown to him, the whole Sikh army, 62 guns and 30,000 men, had advanced from their trenches to a well-screened position on the back fringe of a belt of jungle. Advancing through that jungle, the British took more than 4 hours to cover the 8 miles that separated their bivouac from the village of Chilianwalla, opposite the Sikh centre. It was well after midday when Gough made his preliminary reconnaissance by ascending a small mound to the front of the village. From there he could see that the Sikhs had come out of their trenches and were, in Lord Dalhousie's words, formed in an extended line and on the edge of a jungle. As it was getting late, Gough decided to postpone his attack until the following day, when he would have more information about the Sikh position. Orders were given to halt and make camp. The enemy then opened up with artillery fire, and Gough's heavy batteries responded. Dalhousie wrote, "They were making great execution and rapidly silencing the enemy, when the Commander-in-Chief stopped them and ordered an advance in line of his whole force, with only 2 regiments of native Indians in reserve. In vain he was reminded of the time of the day, in vain he was shown the enemy were ready enough to fight, in vain he was reminded of his own plan, which he was abandoning. In vain the efficacy of the fire of the heavy guns was pointed out, and he was implored to confine himself to them till the next day. He refused. It was a repeat of the Battle of Mudki of December 1845, fought in the last war, with an exhausted British army caught on the hop, and its commander determined to attack a Sikh force of unknown size and location. Better observation of the Sikh position would have told Gough that its weak point was its open right flank. Unaware of this, and heavily outnumbered, he decided to attack the centre of the line in the hope of splitting the Sikh army in two and driving it back towards the river. He formed up his own modest force of 2 infantry divisions, Colin Campbell's on the left and Sir Walter Gilbert's on the right, with a cavalry brigade on either flank. Brigadier Penny's infantry brigade was in reserve. Gough's plan was to soften the enemy defences with artillery fire before ordering a frontal attack. But during the preliminary bombardment, an unidentified staff officer moved a battery of field infantry from the centre of Campbell's position to the left flank in support of some hard-pressed horse artillery. This had the desired effect of subduing a Sikh battery to its front, but it also left Campbell's infantry without sufficient artillery support. The only other notable action on the left flank at this time was a gallant but ineffective charge by a squadron of the 3rd Light Dragoons against a much larger body of irregular Sikh cavalry. Of the 106 men who charged that day against an enemy force at least 7 times their number, only 48 were still in their saddles at the end of the action. At about 3 p.m, Gough ordered his infantry divisions to advance. Campbell chose to accompany his left brigade under Brigadier Hoggan, partly because he thought the scrubby terrain would make divisional control impossible, and partly because Hoggan was short-sighted. It was a mistake because it left his right brigade, under John Pennycook, to its own devices. And to make matters worse, Campbell had earlier exhorted Pennycook's sole British regiment, the 24th Foot, to go in with the bayonet alone. With Campbell's exhortations ringing in their ears, the men of the 24th set off at a tremendous clip with their colours flying and Pennycook at their head. Advancing through scrub jungle, they soon lost contact with both flank regiments of Bengal infantry and their artillery support. Undeterred, they pressed on, and with 150 yards to go, Pennycook ordered them to charge a Sikh battery of 12 guns. The men of the 24th captured the battery after a tough fight, but by attacking without support, they allowed the Sikhs to counterattack. While Sikh horsemen took the British survivors in the flank, a Sikh infantry regiment, hidden from view by the jungle, fired a volley and charged from the front. It was too much for the shattered and by now leaderless regiment. Pennycook was among the killed, as was his son Alexander. With no one to rally them, the men of the 24th fled and took their supporting regiments, just now reaching the Sikh position, with them. Our brigade retired in disorder, admitted Private Plum, the cavalry at our heels, cutting every poor fellow that was wounded or exhausted, with running to the rear. In just a matter of minutes, the 24th had lost more than half its strength of 1,050 men, including 13 officers and 271 men killed, and 10 officers and 280 men wounded. The regimental colour was brought to safety by a private. The Queen's colour was lost on the battlefield. The ultimate disgrace. The destruction of Pennycook's brigade tore a huge hole in the British line. Threatened with disaster, Gough ordered his reserve brigade under Brigadier Penny to fill the gap, but in the confusion it lost its way and ended up supporting Godby's brigade on the right of the British line. Fortunately, and fittingly, the setback on the left was redeemed by the one man who was responsible for it, Colin Campbell. Advancing with the 61st Foot of Hoggan's brigade through jungle less dense than that faced by the 24th, it was supported on its left by a field battery and the 46th Native Infantry, which reached the Sikh position soon after. But the Sepoy regiment on the right of the 61st had had its flank uncovered by the repulse of Pennycook's brigade, and it in turn was driven back by Sikh infantry. This exposed the right flank of the 61st, and to meet the threat, Campbell wheeled the two right-hand companies. Their volley fire blunted the Sikh advance and prevented the pursuit of the beaten Sepoys. Though slightly wounded, Campbell remained in control and ordered the rest of the 61st and the 46th Native Infantry to wheel to the right. Then, having beaten off two more attacks by infantry and cavalry, these regiments began to roll up the Sikh line from the left, retaking the battery the 24th had captured earlier. Eventually they met up with the left brigade of Gilbert's division, which was advancing from the opposite direction. Its British regiment, the 29th Foot, also captured a Sikh battery, though Sepoys were in support. All was not well, however, on the extreme right of the British line, where Colonel Pope's cavalry brigade was tasked with protecting Gilbert's open flank. As it advanced through the jungle, it too lost its way by veering to the left and masking the supporting artillery. Realising his mistake, Pope gave the order "Three's right" to give the guns a line of fire. As the brigade started to carry out this manoeuvre, a large body of Sikh horsemen appeared in front. The commander of the 14th Light Dragoons urged Pope to charge, but he was wounded before he could respond. Instead, an unidentified officer shouted, "Three's about." The result was a shambles. As the brigade turned to the rear, the Sikh horse attacked and set off a chain reaction of panicked flight. The panic was eventually stopped by a pistol-wielding chaplain who was assisting the surgeons. Gough later regretted he could not make him, as he put it, a brevet bishop. The disgraceful flight of Pope's horsemen and the loss of 3 horse artillery guns had left the right wing of Gilbert's division hopelessly exposed. Gilbert compensated by ordering the Sepoy regiment on the right of Godby's brigade to halt and form square. But now the 2nd Bengal European Regiment, advancing in the centre of Godby's brigade, was vulnerable to an attack from the right. Lance Corporal George Carter recorded, "We couldn't see the enemy for bushes, yet they kept up a hot fire of round shot and musketry as we went up to their position, which they soon abandoned." Soon after this, a large body of Sikhs moved down on the right flank of the brigade, and, as we were the right infantry regiment of the army, our company number 1 wheeled back and formed a face to the right so as to hinder the enemy from breaking our flank. We fired by files rapidly as the Sikhs were near. We, rear rank in front, charged the mass of the enemy and utterly routed them. By now the British were in possession of most of the enemy batteries, causing the bulk of the Sikh army to withdraw from the jungle to the hills beyond. Gough's inclination was to hold his ground and continue the attack in the morning, but he was persuaded by a number of his senior officers, including Campbell, to withdraw his exhausted troops to Chilianwalla, where there was water. This movement had unfortunate consequences, however, because it enabled the Sikhs to return during the night and carry away all but 12 of their captured guns. Nor would the weather, incessant rain for the next 3 or 4 days, allow Gough to continue the fight. When it improved, the Sikhs were securely ensconced in their old position, and Gough resolved, once again, to wait for reinforcements from Multan. British losses were 2,375 in all, 650 of them fatal. Despite the terrible cost, Gough considered Chilianwalla a success and said as much in his official dispatch. A mortified Dalhousie did not agree. "We have gained a victory," he wrote privately, "but like that of the ancients, it is such a one that another such would ruin us." Thank you.